My name is Amelia, and welcome to Amelia Voice, the place where stories twist, hearts race, and truth comes knocking when you least expect it. Tonight's story begins on an ordinary Thursday evening, the kind of night where everything feels predictable, until it isn't. I was sitting at my family's dinner table, a place that used to feel warm and familiar, but now felt like a silent battlefield. The chandelier's soft light shimmered over polished plates and tight smiles, and I could sense that something was coming. My sister Vanessa had that look again, the one that warned me she was about to say something sharp enough to cut through the polite chatter. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the mashed potatoes cooling on my plate, but I should have known better. Vanessa had always been the star, the kind who never missed a chance to remind everyone of her glow. She was the successful lawyer, the golden child, the pride of the family. Me? I was the dreamer, the one chasing creative projects that never seemed to pay off, at least not yet. So when she laughed and said, "You're still doing that little online thing, huh?" Must be nice not having a real job. The table went silent. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My father cleared his throat, and I felt every eye turn to me. My chest burned, but I smiled, a small, tired smile that carried more weight than she'd ever understand. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine, eyes glittering with cruel amusement. "I just don't get how you can be okay living like that," she said. "You're almost 30, Amelia. Don't you ever get tired of pretending you're not a broke failure?" The word failure hit like a thunderclap. The air left my lungs. My fingers trembled under the table. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I forced myself to stay calm. I wanted to scream, to throw every word back at her, to remind her that success isn't always measured in paychecks or marble countertops. But I didn't. Instead, I took a sip of water, pretending it didn't sting. My parents exchanged a glance, the kind that said, "Please, not again." Vanessa smirked, satisfied with her performance, and turned her attention to her phone like I was already forgotten. It was a small moment, but it was the kind that breaks something inside you. I excused myself from the table, muttering something about needing fresh air, and stepped outside into the night. The air was cold, sharp, and filled with the sound of crickets echoing through the yard. I stood there, staring at the stars, trying to remember why I kept fighting for dreams that no one else believed in. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost didn't look at it. After all, who calls you at 8 p.m. on a Thursday with good news? But something about the unknown number caught my attention. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen, and then answered. "Hello?" A deep voice responded, calm and formal. "Is this Amelia from Amelia Voice?" My stomach dropped. Yes, this is she," I said cautiously. "Good evening," the voice continued. "I'm calling on behalf of the governor's office. Governor Harris would like to personally congratulate you." I froze. My first instinct was that this was some elaborate prank, maybe even Vanessa's twisted way of mocking me further. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "There must be a mistake." But the man chuckled. "No mistake, Miss Amelia. The governor was deeply moved by your recent story series, the one about community resilience and local heroes. He wanted to thank you for bringing light to issues that matter." My heart raced. My mind replayed his words again and again. The governor? Congratulating me? Before I could form another thought, he said, "He'll be mentioning your name in his upcoming press conference tomorrow morning. Expect a call from his communications team for media coordination." I must have stopped breathing because the man politely asked if I was still there. I stammered out a thank you, my voice trembling with disbelief. When the call ended, I just stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, the night spinning around me. A wave of emotion surged through my chest, relief, joy, validation, all tangled together. I thought about walking back inside and seeing Vanessa's face when I told her. But then I paused. No, not yet. I wanted that moment to be perfect, undeniable, and unstoppable. I wanted her to see me, not as the little sister who never made it, but as the woman who refused to give up, even when everyone told her to. I slipped my phone into my pocket, my lips curling into a slow, quiet smile. The moonlight reflected off the window, and through it I saw my family still at the table. Vanessa laughing, my parents pretending not to notice the tension. They had no idea that my entire life had just changed in the span of a 2-minute phone call. When I finally went back inside, Vanessa was still talking about her latest case, her voice echoing through the room like a performance for an audience that didn't dare interrupt. "Oh, you're back," she said casually. "Decided to join us again?" I met her gaze, calm now, steady. "Yeah," I said softly. "I just had a call." She smirked. "Let me guess, one of your followers finally sent you a donation." I smiled wider this time but said nothing. "Something like that," I murmured, taking my seat. Inside, I was trembling with excitement, but outside, I played it cool. The table talk moved on, but in my mind, the world had cracked open in the best possible way. The governor. Of all people. I couldn't stop replaying it. Every word, every syllable, every breath. All the years of being underestimated, mocked, ignored. It all suddenly felt worth it. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Something big was coming. Something that would make every cruel word vanish into silence. The night ended with goodbyes that felt heavier than usual. Vanessa hugged me, fake and shallow, whispering, "Don't let it get you down, sis. Some people just aren't built for success." I laughed under my breath. "Yeah," I said, "some people aren't." She didn't notice the shift in my tone, the spark that had quietly reignited inside me. As I drove home, the city lights blurred through my windshield, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel lost. I felt unstoppable. I didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for sure. Vanessa's words would soon come back to haunt her in ways she'd never imagine. Because the next chapter of my life wasn't going to be about proving her wrong. It was going to be about becoming everything she said I couldn't be. The next morning, sunlight spilled through my window like a spotlight on a stage I didn't know I was stepping onto. My phone was already buzzing when I opened my eyes, notifications exploding across my screen like fireworks. Mentions, tags, messages, emails. For a second, I thought maybe I was dreaming. But then I saw it. Governor Harris praises creator Amelia Voice for powerful storytelling. My breath caught. It was real. There it was, my name, Amelia Voice, plastered across headlines and tweets, spoken in the governor's official press briefing. I scrambled out of bed, hair messy, heart pounding, scrolling through the flood of attention. Reporters wanted interviews. Local radio stations were tagging me. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly so proud and always believed in me. I wanted to laugh, cry, and scream all at once. The same world that ignored me yesterday was now reaching for my light like moths around a flame. It was intoxicating and terrifying. I brewed a coffee, hands still shaking, and tried to take it all in. Every word the governor had said echoed in my head. We need more voices like Amelia's, people who bring hope to communities that feel forgotten. I sat there in my small kitchen, staring at the cracked tiles and the chipped mug I'd bought years ago at a thrift store, and I smiled. This little apartment, the place Vanessa once mocked as a failed artist's nest, now felt like the headquarters of a movement. I could almost feel the energy pulsing through the walls. My inbox was chaos, but one email stood out. Subject line, from the governor's communications team. My fingers trembled as I clicked it open. Dear Ms. Amelia, Governor Harris would like to personally meet you this Friday at the Capitol. Please confirm your availability. I read the sentence 3 times before it sank in. This wasn't just recognition. This was an invitation into a world I had only ever dreamed of touching. The rest of the day blurred by in a haze of disbelief and adrenaline. My followers were multiplying by the minute. My YouTube analytics showed numbers I'd never seen before, views in the millions, comments pouring in from strangers who said my voice had changed their perspective, given them courage, made them cry. I felt like I was floating. Every message felt like a validation, a whispered, "You were right to keep going." But behind that euphoria, there was a shadow, the voice of my sister still echoing from the night before. Broke failure. The words didn't sting anymore. They ignited something fierce. Part of me wanted to call her right then, to hear the silence that would follow when she realized what had happened. But I didn't, not yet. I wanted her to see it herself, to feel the punch of reality when my story hit the evening news. By noon, my parents called. My mother's voice trembled with excitement. "Amelia, honey! We saw the press conference. The governor, he said your name." I could hear the joy in her tone, but also the disbelief, like she couldn't quite process that her quiet daughter had suddenly become a public figure. My father, usually so stoic, chimed in from the background. "We're proud of you, kiddo. Really proud." The warmth in his voice almost undid me. For years, their support had been hesitant, polite, filtered through worry. But this was pure pride. I laughed through tears, promising to visit soon. It was the first time in a long time that I felt like they truly saw me, not as the struggling dreamer, but as the woman who had turned her voice into something powerful. The hours passed in a blur of phone calls, interviews, and camera lights. Local journalists showed up at my doorstep, and I found myself speaking into microphones, answering questions about my journey, my struggles, my purpose. I told them the truth, that it hadn't been easy, that there were nights I almost gave up, that I'd faced ridicule from people who thought my path was foolish. I didn't name Vanessa, but as I spoke, I thought of her every time I said the word doubt. One of the reporters smiled and said, "It's incredible how quickly life can change." I nodded, trying to hide the smile tugging at my lips. "Yes," I said softly, "sometimes it takes just one call." That evening, I sat in front of my ring light, recording a new video for my channel. "Hey everyone, it's Amelia from Amelia Voice," I began, my tone steady but glowing with emotion. I wasn't planning to upload today, but something amazing happened. The governor of our state reached out to recognize the work we've been doing here, together. This isn't just my win, it's ours. My voice cracked just slightly, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest. I poured my heart out about perseverance, faith, and how one person's belief in their message can ripple further than they ever imagined. When I finished, I hit upload and just sat there, staring at the screen as the view counter ticked upward. Then came the knock on my door. Sharp, unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hesitated, heart thumping, and opened it just enough to see a familiar face. Vanessa. She stood there, perfectly dressed as always, her expression unreadable. "Amelia," she said flatly, eyes scanning the reporters down the hallway who were packing up. "What's going on? Why is everyone talking about you?" I leaned against the doorframe, every nerve in my body alert. "You didn't see?" I asked, almost teasing. Her eyes narrowed. "See what?" I pulled out my phone, opened the headline with my name in bold, and handed it to her. For a long moment, she just stared. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. I could see the realization hit, the disbelief, the discomfort, the cracks forming in her polished confidence. Finally, she laughed, forced and brittle. "Wow, the governor, that's unexpected." I smiled, calm and deliberate. "Yeah," I said softly. "Life's funny like that." She shifted her weight, clearly unsettled. "Well," she said, "good for you, I guess." But the words didn't land right. They sounded hollow, half swallowed. Before she could say anything else, my phone buzzed again. Another call. Unknown number. But I knew that tone of urgency in the notification. I picked up, eyes still on Vanessa. "Hello?" I said. The voice on the other end was brisk, professional. "Miss Amelia? This is the production coordinator for the National Civic Awards. The governor has nominated you for the Emerging Voice of Change recognition. Congratulations." My knees nearly gave out. Vanessa blinked, her eyes widening as she caught the words from my side of the conversation. "Wait," she whispered, "did they just say—" I nodded, barely able to speak. "Yeah," I said, voice trembling but steady. "They did." And in that moment, standing in the doorway between my humble apartment and the world that had once mocked me, I realized I didn't need revenge. I had something far better, proof. That night, after Vanessa left in stunned silence, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every moment. The dinner table insults, the governor's call, the headlines, the look on my sister's face when she realized that the broke failure had become a state-recognized figure. It should have felt like victory, but instead it felt surreal. My heart raced every time my phone buzzed. My thoughts swirled between excitement and fear. This was bigger than I'd imagined. My small channel, Amelia Voice, had gone from storytelling to something more, something powerful. People were listening, people were moved, and now people in power wanted to meet me. But with attention came pressure, and I could already feel it pressing against my chest like invisible hands demanding more. The next morning, I woke to an avalanche of messages. My manager, friend who sometimes helped with emails, was practically shouting over the phone. "Amelia, CNN just called. They want you for a morning segment next week. And get this, TEDx reached out too. They want you to speak?" I sat there in bed, clutching my blanket, stunned into silence. "Wait, what?" I finally whispered. "Me, TEDx?" "Yes, you," she laughed. "You're the talk of the week. Everyone's calling you the voice of hope." My heart fluttered, but somewhere inside, a quiet fear began to whisper. The world loved me now, but the same world that lifted people up was just as quick to tear them down. Still, I couldn't let that fear show. Not now. I spent the next few days preparing for my meeting at the Capitol. I bought my first tailored suit, navy blue, simple but sharp, and practiced what I would say in front of the mirror. "Thank you for recognizing my work," I'd rehearse, trying to sound confident but humble. The imposter syndrome was loud, whispering that I didn't belong there, that I was just a girl who talked into a microphone from her apartment. But another voice, stronger this time, pushed back. "You've earned this. You've worked for this. You belong here." By Friday morning, I was standing at the foot of the Capitol steps, sunlight glinting off the marble columns, a surreal blend of nerves and pride coursing through me. Inside, the grandeur was overwhelming. High ceilings, echoing footsteps, the faint scent of polished wood and history. When the door to the governor's office opened, I felt my pulse skip. Governor Harris stood there smiling warmly. He wasn't the distant politician I'd imagined. He seemed genuine, grounded. "Amelia," he said, extending his hand, "it's a pleasure to finally meet you." My voice almost caught in my throat, but I managed to reply, "The honor's mine, Governor." He led me inside, where photographers clicked and aides hovered. "Your story about local resilience struck a chord with me," he said as we sat. "We need more voices that remind people of hope. You did that beautifully." Hearing those words from a man who ran the state was almost too much. I felt my throat tighten. "Thank you," I whispered. "I just wanted to give people something real." He nodded thoughtfully. "You did more than that. You inspired people, and that's why I'd like to invite you to speak at the State Unity Gala next month. It's televised nationwide. You'd be sharing your message in front of thousands." My breath hitched. "The Unity Gala?" I repeated, as if saying it aloud would make it real. "Yes," he smiled. "Your voice deserves a stage." I didn't even realize I was smiling until my cheeks ached. I shook his hand again, heart soaring. When I stepped out of that office, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, I felt like I was walking on air. By the time I got home, the news had already broken. Governor invites rising creator Amelia Voice to speak at State Gala. My notifications exploded again, and messages flooded in. Friends, fans, even old classmates suddenly so proud. And then there was one name that stood out, Vanessa. Her text popped up like a ghost from the past. "Hey, saw the news. I didn't realize how far you've come. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it, to let her stew in the silence she once fed me. But then I thought about the bigger picture, about growth, grace, and how proving her wrong wasn't the real victory. The real victory was becoming someone she could no longer define. "So," I replied, "sure, dinner tomorrow?" The next evening, I met her at a restaurant downtown. Not our usual family place, but somewhere new. Neutral territory. She arrived first, looking a little less polished than usual. Her confidence dimmed just slightly. "Amelia," she said softly as I sat down. "You look incredible," I smiled politely. "Thanks." There was an awkward pause, the kind that felt heavy with things unsaid. Finally, she sighed. "Listen, I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have said what I said at dinner. I was jealous, maybe. I don't know, She trailed off, eyes wet. "You proved me wrong, and I hate that I ever made you feel small." Her words hit harder than I expected. For a long moment, I just looked at her, seeing not the perfect, polished sister who'd mocked me, but a flawed, insecure woman struggling to say sorry. I took a deep breath. "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." She nodded, swallowing hard. "You deserve everything that's happening." "You really do." I smiled faintly. "I didn't do it to prove you wrong, I just wanted to tell stories that mattered." She laughed softly. "And now the whole world's listening." For the first time in years, we talked, really talked. Not as rivals, not as enemies, but as sisters. When we said goodbye that night, she hugged me tight. It wasn't the stiff, obligatory hug from before, it was real. And as I walked back to my car, the city lights reflecting in my eyes, I realized something powerful. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it frees you from it. I didn't need her validation anymore. I didn't need anyone's. The little voice that once whispered, "You're not enough," was gone. Replaced by something unshakable. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing success, I was living it. And yet, deep down, I had no idea that the biggest twist of my story was still to come, waiting just beyond the glow of my newfound fame. The following week felt like living inside a dream that refused to slow down. Every morning, new doors opened, new opportunities appeared, and every night, my mind replayed the surreal transformation of my life. Just a few weeks ago, I'd been mocked by my own sister for chasing meaningless stories. Now, I was standing in the center of a whirlwind: meetings, interviews, offers, sponsorships, invitations. My name, Amelia Voice, wasn't just a channel anymore. It had become a movement. People were writing to me from across the country. Single mothers saying my words helped them keep going. Teachers playing my stories in classrooms. Soldiers thanking me for reminding them of hope. And in the middle of it all, the governor's invitation to speak at the State Unity Gala loomed closer, shimmering on the horizon like the defining moment of my life. Each day leading up to it, I practiced my speech until my throat ached. I rewrote it over and over, wanting it to be perfect, wanting it to feel earned. Late one night, I stood in front of the mirror, clutching my note cards, whispering the final lines again. Hope isn't born in comfort. It's born in doubt, in ridicule, in the moments you're told you can't, and you rise anyway. Every time I said those words, I felt goosebumps crawl up my arms. They weren't just lines for a speech, they were the anthem of my journey. But even in my triumph, I felt a strange undercurrent. The more attention I got, the more eyes turned toward me, not all of them kind. The internet, as it always does, began to dig. Old videos, old comments, anything that could twist the narrative. "Who is Amelia Voice, really?" one headline asked. "From unknown YouTuber to governor's favorite, too good to be true?" Another teased. At first, I laughed it off. That's the price of visibility, I told myself. But then one night, an email arrived. The subject line read, "You should watch your back." No sender name, no signature, just those 5 words. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen for minutes, reading and rereading the message. Was it a threat? A warning? Or just a cruel prank from someone jealous? I deleted it, convincing myself it meant nothing, but sleep didn't come easy that night. Still, the next morning, I got up, recorded another video, and smiled for the camera. The world would not see me flinch. 3 days before the gala, the governor's office called again. His assistant sounded hurried. "Amelia, there's been a change of plans. The governor wants to meet privately before your speech, something important to discuss." I agreed, though a knot of curiosity twisted in my chest. When I arrived at the Capitol, the mood was different this time. Tense, quiet. I was led to a small meeting room instead of his grand office. Governor Harris entered, his usual warmth dimmed by something heavier. He shook my hand but didn't smile. "Amelia, thank you for coming on such short notice." I nodded, uncertain. "Of course, sir. Is everything all right?" He hesitated, then handed me a folder. "I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll be honest with me." Inside the folder were printed screenshots, old social media posts, years back, from a private account I'd forgotten even existed. Posts I'd made in my early 20s, angry rants, frustrations, clumsy opinions that didn't age well. My throat tightened. "Where did you get these?" I asked quietly. "It was sent anonymously to our office," he said. "Normally we wouldn't care, but given the media's interest, I needed to know if this could cause controversy." I swallowed hard. Governor, I was a different person then. I was lost, broke, angry at the world. But that's not who I am now. My whole message, everything I do, is about growth and healing. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you, but the media may not. Still, I'm standing by my decision to let you speak. You've earned this. Don't let them take it from you." Relief flooded me, but it was fragile. That night, as I scrolled through my notifications, the stories had already begun spreading online. Amelia Voice's dark past surfaces. The comments were vicious. Strangers dissecting me, twisting my words, deciding what kind of person I was. My follower count began fluctuating wildly, thousands unsubscribing, thousands more rushing to defend me. I sat in the dark, staring at the storm I couldn't stop, heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, the old doubt crept back in. Maybe Vanessa was right. Maybe I was never meant for this. But then, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Vanessa. "Don't let them break you." I saw the posts. "Everyone says dumb things when they're young. You've grown. That's what matters. Be who you are." I stared at her words, tears filling my eyes. The sister who once called me a failure was now the one reminding me of my worth. I realized then how strange and beautiful life could be, how the same people who hurt you could someday be the ones holding you steady. The night before the gala, I went for a walk along the river, the city lights shimmering on the water like scattered stars. I thought about everything, the struggle, the ridicule, the rise, the backlash. And in that quiet, I understood something profound. Success isn't about applause or fame. It's about staying true to your voice when the world tries to silence it. I whispered to myself. No one can take what's already been earned through pain. When I returned home, I found a letter slipped under my door. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten, elegant. The same unknown sender who had emailed me before. This time the note read, "They want to silence you at the gala. Be careful who stands beside you." My hands trembled. I looked out into the hallway, empty, quiet, but suddenly every shadow felt alive. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. For a moment I hesitated before answering. A familiar voice spoke on the other end. "Amelia, it's the governor. We need to talk, urgently." And just like that, the world I thought I'd finally understood was about to twist again.